So I'm kind of the only really musical one in my family. Mum sings in a choir. My first guitar ever was my brother's, and everyone does a bit of something, but otherwise I feel pretty isolated in it. And our musical family moved in next door, so that was part of the spark. Also, I'd been really debilitated by mental illness, depression, anxiety-based stuff, and my newly started EMDR treatment had been seeming to have a positive impact on it. I was feeling more energy and ambition that I previously wasn't feeling much of as a result of depression and stuff. So it enabled that spark to catch light, like just enough air was getting through for the flame to start burning and to continue to. It started with me setting up a studio on day one. That piece of music was not intended to become the first day of this 7-day thing. It only became a thing, a certainty in my mind, maybe on the night of day 2. So day 1 and day 2 are kind of underpolished in my mind, but who knows how you'll hear it. It's how it happened, so it's how it was meant to happen. Also, the heart and soul of the idea was to see how it evolve in a super concentrated pursuit, like making music or video for the music for an entire week straight. It was pretty much every waking hour for a week. So I guess it shows the evolution even more pronounced. It does to me anyway. Before I get onto individual songs, just to mention the daily structure. Day 1 was mostly setting up the studio and then just recording something, anything at the end of the day. Day 2 was a bit more comprised of music, and then day 3 was the first song where I was like, okay, something's happening right now. I need to go through with this. After day 3, I did the first 3 music videos the next morning/lunchtime. Day 4 was intended to be an interlude so I could catch up with the routine, where it became every morning I'd work on yesterday's song video, and every afternoon I'd work on that day's song. So in a sense, it wasn't a 7-day EP as much as it was a 3.5-day EP and a 3.5-day video studio thing. Day 4 was also where I realized there was a real considerable pressure element to it. If I can't conjure up a good song this day, then a bad song comes out the next day. And it sucks to be me, and it'll tarnish the whole thing in some way. So I did my best to make each day something inspired and worthwhile, at least once the pursuit was intentional after the first day or so. Also, I just want to mention how therapeutic this was for me. I heartily recommend this challenge for anyone. To release it daily too, with the pressure of if something bad comes out the day before, sucks to be you, you're putting it out. And to be able to get daily feedback from the audience about what they'd like to hear more of and help shape what's to come, it seemed like a really cool idea. For me, this was a distinct moment of, like, after months, even years of feeling like I didn't have what it took to do a bigger project again, energy-wise, ambition-wise, being numb as a motherfucker. I came out of it like reborn in some way. Also, there's a little bit of that hit your head against the wall for a week just to see how good it feels when you finally stop type sentiment. But anyway, onto the songs. Day 1 was just miking up the drum kit properly for the first time and getting some kind of proper recording from it. This entire EP is live drums played by me, live performances in every aspect. It's really easy to click in a drum pattern or a synth thing, but for some reason an unspoken rule with myself about this whole thing was to play it with my own hands, so it felt like a human. I think for the aforementioned reasons, it was the perfect time to do this. My existence had been trying in the years previous. Without a doubt, much worse suffering exists, but suffering is relative. Like, if you live your whole life in total peace and then 50 years later someone suddenly kicks the shit out of you, it's going to suck a whole lot more for that individual than for an MMA fighter adding a loss to their record. In this mental health example, through the treatments I've tried, I'm starting to learn I'm more like the latter than the former, but this time in particular was one charged with a lot of some kind of spiritual fuel, positive and negative, more than I'd had in the tank for a long time. So day one was just setting up the studio, and then a song happened at the other end. I kind of hear the lyrics as self-encouragement for the days to come. Day two, the first thing that comes to mind is my buddy Liam and Callum and Daniel a bit, James, Paul, basically just the people in your life who are more down for the weird in music. The clown math metal, the noise, the schizophrenically shifting time signatures and genres. Not that that was the goal here, but that kind of music and those dudes are the first thing that comes to mind. I kind of think more of Mac DeMarco with this one actually for some reason. I saw a performance of him with Conan Moccasin, an interview talking about a John Lennon album that was a lot of painful screaming, and some of Mac's own great screams on a late night talk show performance of one of his songs. And the weirdness that seeps into his otherwise fairly textbook structure of songs. All of that, I think, shaped this. The origin point of it was thinking about from a studio standpoint, I've got the kit mic'd up fully, I've got a direct in lead for instruments. Basically, I've got the situation set up where I can just hit record and document with any instrument. One of the biggest killers of creative expression is how long it takes to set up and record an instrument sometimes. Drum kits can take 2 hours or more to mic up if you're measuring everything, which I didn't really, maybe 1 or 2 measurements at the start, let alone if you're trying all your options. So to have it set up in a way where you can just hit record and pick up an instrument or sit down at the kit or walk over to the microphone, it can't be overstated how valuable that is to getting ideas out as the inspiration hits you. Also, the vocal mic ended up moving from kit to vocals and back and forth, so there was some subtle limitation there. But yeah, this was the first track I did where it was motivated largely by the fact I could hit record and quickly jump between instruments for the first time. I remember seeing it on the teaser trailer thing for the Tame Impala album, Currents. Always wanted to do it, very glad I did. However, smooth segue, the drum sounds were definitely limited by how much I could fit into a day, and as such, of course, and definitely on the first 2 days, don't hold a candle to the aforementioned seminal release. Trying to improve my live sound kit was something of a target throughout the whole 7-day EP. Always room for improvement, but they got somewhere. Day 3, I'd made a habit of each night after the day's output talking into a voice recording about what I felt the next days should contain. This time I thought of Stop This Train by John Mayer. I hadn't been in a gym for like 15 years, but I started going recently and started trying to catch up on albums I needed to listen to, one of which was John Mayer's Continuum. Great album. I just wanted to start off with something finger-picked with the capo up somewhere around the 4th fret to 7th fret mark. So I did. I came up with the chords, recorded them, hung my washing out, and then came in and started writing the lyrics. Pretty quickly I got emotional as fuck, even wet-eyed, which really doesn't happen much when I'm working on a song, much less just writing the lyrics. This continued on to actually performing them too. That's why my voice sounds like that. I think the lyrics are reflective of how my mind and body feels sometimes. I've never really been suicidal, but I've had my share of panic attacks, thought I was dying, thought I wasn't going to last the year, so on. Just what it looks like when you die, what you leave behind, where you go. The inspiration for that line that basically says, at the end, you see the face of your mum, was the Mother series of games. I'd just recently finished Mother 3 and played Mother 1 and Earthbound in the couple of years prior. Also, side note, while I'm on games, this 7-day EP thing happened right during my first playthrough of Chrono Trigger, for whatever that's worth, right before the Magus fight. But yeah, Maria in Magicant, the Gygas fight, and the Klaus fight, I think all influenced that line. Also, just the idea that you see the person you originated from when you leave the same world. Mums are something special. please show love to them. I got lucky in the mum department, but maybe you didn't. I've heard of truly horrible ones. But even if showing love is just accepting that they didn't choose to be that way, they were born to parents they didn't choose, in a place in the world that they didn't choose. They didn't choose what influenced them to make the decisions they made to end up where they are. We're all just on a ride. And that includes upholding morals. Just try to be understanding of that. To get back to the song, what mums do in general is truly special. They're the doorway to life. So maybe we see their face when we die. Also, I just want to talk quickly about why I'm not super scared of death. Everything we eat that actually sustains us comes from living plant matter or animal matter. That is death feeding life. And the very act of living is an unavoidable road to death. I don't know about you, but I see that as cyclical. I see that just like I see night and day, yin and yang, even pain and pleasure, or man and woman, in the sense of a spectrum. I think death is just the other side of life. Everything we do is motivated by survival, either our own survival or the survival of our genetics through sex. That's the code that keeps an animal alive. I think when you die, individuals are probably motivated by their desire to avoid life, like we are death. If this all were to be true, death sounds restful and life can be tiring. I would want to avoid the inevitable rebirth as well. I'm still just feeling out that last part, but it's food for thought if nothing else. I also like the drums at the end of this one. Day 4 was meant to be an interlude, after day 3 being 3 videos and 3 songs released, writing up posts, blah blah blah. I felt spent. I also felt like I hit a moment, inspiration-wise, where the well felt dry. I can't remember if a song inspired this one or not, but basically I just started putting down pieces until something took shape. This was also one where the night before I think I did a voice recording and said, this should be the lyrics to the next song, and then just spoke those lyrics out almost word for word. I think only 2 or 3 words changed. I think this is the only one where I'd changed something about the video. I'm talking in one of the clips near the end. I forgot to mute it, but that's whatever. The main thing is this clip has the most fucking 5-headed clip that has ever existed of me, and it's in there for basically no reason. Look at that 5-head. What the fuck? My forehead has never +1 like that before or since. Must have been galaxy brained that day. Straight up inflated. Fuck me. Surprised I didn't float away. How did I get it in a building? I probably had a hat on, but a light breeze blew it off my scalp. Frankenstein looking motherfucker. How dare you take up that much facial real estate? It's honestly like my forehead's trying to get away from the rest of my face. Should rent it out for billboards, or property, or airlines. Alright, that's enough. Day 5, I thought about those same guys in our lives from day 2, but in another light. So I started to write sort of a silly little song about, well, the title, whether or not it's morally right as an artist to write pop. As in the debate between creating pure artistic expression or entertainment products. Obviously you can do both, and depending on who you are, no compromise has to be made, but it was a fun path to go down. I like the tongue-in-cheekness of, will you still love me if it's not? It's layered in a few ways, kind of unintentionally, because if I was ever friends or lovers with someone who said it's not okay to write pop, I wouldn't care for that person's want to restrict themselves and others, and thus care deeply for that relationship in the first place. Also, it's like pop means popular, so it's kind of out of your control in some way anyway. The sound of pop has changed and will continue to change as time goes on. I personally don't hold any ill stigma against pop, and I think it's hilarious that some musicians do. If it's mass-produced, paint by numbers, the same song cranked out on a conveyor belt, 100% fuck that. But pop as a genre outside of that, why not? Like, life's too short to not see the merits in everything. variety is the spice of life. Really, this song just started off with me building the instrumental though. I often write lyrics phonetically, just whatever syllables come to my mouth. Helps me find the words that belong there. And this was one of those where I just built the instrumental and then I just started singing Is It Okay to Write Pop on top of it, thinking those lyrics would change, but I'm really glad they never did. I really enjoy the sentiment of this song, how satirical it is. Is that how satire works? I don't know. Day 6, I just needed a rest. I thought about calling it at 5 days, but something in me told me it has to be a week. Has to be a week. I also knew I wanted to end with something bigger for the final day. I wanted it to explode at the end into something beyond, something that hinted at the unique contributions I have to give as a unique artist, like we all are. So I needed to rest the day before to recharge for that. And so Riverbed was born. I really like this one. It felt like something that somehow had to happen in the business end of a musical marathon like this. That it had to exist truly as an actual necessity for rest and calm. If I was already rested and calm, I don't think that song would feel as gentle. I like the drums on it a lot, and it was fun to play flute on here somewhere. Didn't think I'd get to. I think one of the other songs has flute in it somewhere, deep in the mix, but yeah, this is the main one. This one at times felt like I could have made it into my own catalogue's Aqueous Transmission, an Incubus song I've played 1,000 times in my life at least. Time restrained it to this, but also after I pieced it together, I felt this one was meant to be short and sweet. At least in this iteration. I always liked on Parkway Drive's Horizons album how they had horizons, but they also had Moments of Oblivion, a song that shared a clear riff and section from Horizons, or vice versa. It's the only time I've seen sort of two totally different evolutions of the same riff or section or piece of connective tissue, creatively speaking. I always thought that was cool because those forks in the road are all through making music. Does this section become this song or does it become that song? Parkway Drive went Old El Paso, why not both on that shit? And I'm grateful for it. Day 7 just felt so special from end to end. I'd finally reached the end of this creative marathon, this challenge. This EP can peter out or it can end with a bang. I pursued the latter with what I had left in the tank. The morning started filming all the shirt customization experience with the residents of Lennox Head. Casey, Caleb, Clara, Alicia, Michelle from Papaya, Leanne from IGA, Gavin, and a few I didn't catch their names or know said names prior. It was a very soul-filling experience, and it was a cool thing to contribute to their day too. Everyone seemed really pleased to have a bit of creativity requested of them during their day, an artful reprieve from their otherwise structured day. One woman I suppose I shouldn't identify, but she'd just lost her niece to suicide. She really looked a bit lost before we started talking, and she did a piece for her niece on the shirt and left with a smile on her face. There's no better time to say this. The love everyone put into that shirt made me get home and feel especially charged to make something worthy for them and everyone like them, with creativity in their hearts and minds, but perhaps rarely taking the opportunity to show it. Incidentally, the clips at the start of this video were filmed in the first couple of days before I'd put out songs 1 through 3, which all came out on day 3. So there's kind of a nice unintentional chronology to the video. The spot where I'm sitting down near the drum kit, I'm actually listening to Restful and Plain, which in hindsight kind of makes a lot of sense with the I was cold and on my own lyrics on top. To have that juxtapose and grow with the separate idea I had for a town or region to customize a piece of clothing, to go from alone to that, I think it made for a really beautiful transition, ascension. And then I had to have the ending show their work on the shirt. And to show that, to quote another one of my songs, if I'm ever alone, you can change my mind. You're never really alone. If you feel alone right now, message, comment below. Right now I have the time and energy to message you back and talk about things, and I would love nothing more than to help if I can. That night I had a bath just to melt after 7 days hunched over my computer or guitar or keyboard, kit, etc. I've never felt anything quite like how I felt then. I was tethered to the moment. I felt like I evolved. I wish I could have that feeling forever. Everything seemed so full of curious detail. It was something special, to say the least. I'm really glad I did this 7-day EP. At times I think about my art as my babies, but beyond that, because they can live in perpetuity. When I put out something I'm really happy about, it feels like a real win. Like I can die happier each time I make one of those. Some lifetimes only get one of those, some get 20. The magnitude of each varies. The 7-day EP as a whole felt like a big win to come out the other side of. It felt like my mental battles were decisively no longer necessarily going to be a permanent situation as far as the future is concerned. And when time runs out, it's one of those direct from the spirit expressions that I'm really honored to have enabled to take root in this life. John Frusciante said it once, but I think creativity comes from somewhere else, not from the individual, but perhaps from whatever pool we are drawn from as humans or as animals. I definitely feel simply as a vessel for this. And as a music maker, I feel as a translator for the signal of that origin point into waves of sound. Up and down, in the sense of a spectrum. I just realized that's my music playing. I thought someone's music was playing in the back. In the sense of a spectrum, fluctuating between 2 points. There's a rhythm to this life, I'm sure of it. My hunch is that it's most friendly when we move in synchronous with that rhythm, those waves. Thank you for listening. Spread love. Spread love.